If you are, someone who regularly comes to the park and you're familiar with our Indian Gharial habitat, you probably noticed that at one of the windows there is a large tube in there. There's a little description that we put on it that I just made on Canva that I printed out over there describing what that tube is for. And that is just for Taj, our male Indian Gharial. So he is due to go to the vets just to get a checkup, got to get some scans done, and to get him in there, we are voluntarily training him to go into his crate on his own. So that's what that tube is, just serving as that temporary crate. With crate training, it is pretty much getting him desensitized to that. So that station is already established for Taj. And when I say station, it's just an area that we use for the animals. It's their spot that they go to go and get food. So Taj is already comfortable with that. So that's a perfect spot to put that new tube, that new outside object. Because at first, any new thing you put into an exhibit, it's gonna be, it might be a little bit spooky to the animal. So it starts out with just seeing if he's gonna come up to it. And Taj was a rock star right from the start. He did really well. So we go ahead and we just called him over. He initially knows that routine, so he came over, coming up on there to that station. And as you saw there, we get him to come into the tube. Now the next obstacle that comes from that is going to be, he always wants to lift his head up, and Gharials, as you see, they have that long, slender snout, perfect for catching fish. However, if you're in a tube and you lift your head up, you're going to bonk your nose on the top. So at first, he really didn't like that. He would go ahead, he would grab it, and then he would always want to get back. And that took a few sessions, just leaving that tube in there, rinse, wash, repeat, twice a week. Every time we do that feeding, just do that little brief training session with him. And then eventually he got used to it. And now, as you saw, he'll come right up into the tube. He'll go ahead, he'll put his head all the way through. So it's looking really good. And I have no doubt he's going to be great about going to that crate when it finally comes to it. Tubes or a crate or anything, any box or something to contain it, there's a few things you want to consider. So we found these big culvert pipes, these tubes work really well because we can build a frame around it. And for the larger crocodilians, it kind of just gives them a little more space in there. However, too much space can be something in a crate, as odd as that sounds. You don't want that animal to be able to turn around too much per se, or be able to whack their head around and things like that, because sometimes during transit, if there's any bumps in a plane flight or in a car or in the truck, they can get freaked out and they could maybe bash their face and stuff there. So you want them to be able to move and be comfortable, but also to be snug enough that they're kind of staying put. They're not going to go ahead and try to hurt themselves. But usually once they're in the crate, it's kind of that dark environment, they tend to calm down a little bit.